The knife blade stopped 1 inch from his throat. She stood in darkness, shaking, ready to kill him, to protect the 3 children hiding behind her body. He was a Navy SEAL who buried 6 brothers in Syria and came here to disappear forever. She was a widow whose husband was murdered for a letter that named the most powerful men in America. Their eyes met. Her hand trembled. His heart stopped. On the table between them lay a single piece of paper, stained with tears, weighted with secrets that could destroy an empire or get them all killed. Neither of them knew that in this frozen moment, 2 shattered lives were about to collide into something neither death nor corruption could ever break apart. Before we begin, tell us where you're watching from. If this story moves you, hit subscribe and stay until the very end. Leave a comment with your city so we can see how far this story travels. Your support means more than you known. Marcus Cole had not slept in 47 hours. His hands gripped the steering wheel with the same controlled tension he had carried through 12 years of Navy SEAL operations. His knuckles were white. His jaw was locked. His eyes, gray-green and unblinking, stared through the windshield at the wall of snow swallowing the mountain road ahead. In the passenger seat, Shadow lifted his head. The German Shepherd was 7 years old, black and tan, with a scar running across his muzzle from a knife fight in Fallujah. His ears rotated toward the sound of Marcus's breathing, reading his handler the way he had been trained to read enemies. "Easy," Marcus murmured. "We're almost there." Shadow did not relax. He never did anymore. Neither of them knew how. 3 months ago, Marcus had watched 6 men die. His brothers. His team. The ambush in Syria had lasted 11 minutes. Intelligence had been leaked. Someone had sold them out. Marcus had fought his way through hell, dragging wounded men toward extraction, calling for air support that came too late. He was the only one who walked out. The Navy gave him a medal. The doctors gave him a diagnosis: PTSD. Survivor's guilt, traumatic brain injury. Words that explained everything and healed nothing. His commanding officer had called him into a quiet office 2 weeks ago. "You're not broken, Marcus. You're jammed. A weapon that won't fire isn't useless. It just needs time to be fixed." "I don't know how to fix this, sir." "Then go somewhere quiet. Somewhere that knew you before all this. Let silence do what medicine can't." Marcus had only one place left: his mother's cabin in the Montana wilderness. She had died 4 years ago, cancer that moved faster than anyone expected. The cabin had sat empty ever since, locked up with her memory frozen in time, like everything else Marcus had lost. He had not been back since the funeral. The road narrowed. Trees pressed closer. Snow fell so thick, Marcus could barely see 10 feet ahead. The GPS had lost signal an hour ago, but he did not need it. His body remembered the same way it remembered how to breathe, how to fight, how to survive, when survival felt like punishment. Shadow's growl started low in his chest. Marcus glanced at the dog. "What is it?" Shadow's ears flattened. His body stiffened. His eyes locked on something ahead that Marcus could not yet see. Then the cabin appeared through the white curtain of snow, and Marcus's foot hit the brake. The chimney was smoking. Marcus stared at the thin gray line rising from the roof, disappearing into the blizzard. His mother's cabin, locked for 4 years, no caretaker, no visitors, no one who should be inside. But someone had lit a fire. Shadow pressed against the window, a continuous growl vibrating through his body. His training held him still, but every muscle was coiled ready. Marcus killed the engine. The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by wind and the dog's warning. "Stay," Marcus commanded. He stepped out into the cold. The snow was knee-deep fresh powder over older ice. His boots found footing through instinct weight, distributed movements silent. 12 years of training did not switch off. It became who you were. He approached the cabin from an angle staying out of the window's line of sight. His hand moved to his hip where his sidearm should have been, but he had left it in the truck. He was supposed to be healing, not hunting. Footprints in the snow. Small ones. Too light for an adult. Children. Marcus stopped. His heart rate, which had remained steady through dozens of combat operations, jumped. More prints. Larger ones. A woman's boot. Pacing near the door, then retreating inside. The pattern spoke of fear of checking and rechecking of someone who expected danger to follow. He reached the door. The wood was warm to the touch, heat leaking through gaps that his mother had always meant to fix. Marcus did not knock. He opened the door. The knife came at his face. Marcus caught the wrist behind it, redirecting the blade past his cheek, pulling the attacker off balance and spinning her against the wall in one fluid motion. The knife clattered to the floor. His forearm pressed against her collarbone, pinning her in place. Then he saw her eyes. Dark. Wide. Filled with terror so deep, it had become something else entirely. Desperation. The look of someone who had already accepted death and was fighting anyway. "Please!" Her voice cracked. "Please not, my children. Take me. Do whatever you want. Just not my children." Marcus released her instantly, stepping back, hands raised. "I'm not here to hurt you." She did not believe him. Her body stayed pressed against the wall, trembling, her eyes darting toward the shadows behind her. That was when Marcus saw them. 3 children huddled in the corner near the fireplace. A girl, maybe 7, stood in front of the others, her small body positioned as a shield. Her chin was lifted. Her fists clenched, her eyes locked on Marcus with a defiance that broke something inside his chest. Behind her, a boy of about 5 sat motionless, clutching a worn blanket, his face completely blank. No tears, no fear, nothing. The emptiness of a child who had seen too much. And in the girl's arms, wrapped in a coat, far too large a baby. 11 months old, maybe less. Her breathing was shallow, too fast, a wet rattle threading through each exhale. The woman pushed off the wall, placing herself between Marcus and the children. Her body shook, but her voice hardened. "Who sent you? No one sent me. This is my mother's cabin." "Liar. It's been empty for 4 years. I came back to—" He stopped. To what to hide? To disappear. "I didn't expect anyone to be here." The woman studied him. Her face was gaunt cheekbones, sharp beneath skin that carried the warm bronze tone of Latina heritage. Dark hair fell in tangled waves past her shoulders, unwashed, neglected. She was beautiful in the way that suffering sometimes made people beautiful, stripped down to something essential and fierce. "You're military," she said. It was not a question. "Former Navy SEAL." Her breath caught. Something flickered in her eyes. Fear still, but also something else. Calculation. "Prove it." Marcus slowly reached into his jacket, moving with deliberate care so she could track every motion. He pulled out his wallet, flipped it open, and held up his military ID. She stared at it for a long moment. Then her shoulders dropped half an inch. Not relaxed, just slightly less ready to die. "Elena," she said quietly. "My name is Elena Vasquez." "Marcus Cole." Silence stretched between them. The fire crackled. The baby's breathing filled the room with its terrible, labored rhythm. Then the girl spoke. "Are you going to kill us like they killed Daddy?" Marcus felt the words hit him like a bullet. He looked at the child. 7 years old. Straight, dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. Eyes that should have held innocence, but instead carried the weight of something no child should ever know. "No," Marcus said. His voice came out rougher than he intended. "I'm not going to hurt anyone." The girl did not blink. "That's what the other men said, before they took Daddy away." Elena moved quickly, kneeling beside her daughter, pulling her close. "Sophia, that's enough." "But Mama, enough." Sophia fell silent, but her eyes never left Marcus. Watching. Measuring. A child who had learned that words meant nothing and actions meant everything. The boy had not moved, had not spoken. His gaze remained fixed on some middle distance present, but absent a defense mechanism Marcus recognized from soldiers who had witnessed atrocities. "What happened to him?" Marcus asked quietly. Elena's face tightened. "Mateo saw things a 5-year-old should never see." She paused. "He hasn't spoken since." Marcus absorbed this. The cabin suddenly felt smaller, the walls pressing inward with the weight of tragedy he had walked into. "How long have you been here?" 5 days, maybe 6. I lost count." "How did you find this place?" "We didn't find it. We ran until we couldn't run anymore. The door was unlocked. There was firewood, food in cans." Her voice broke slightly. "It felt like God left it here for us." Marcus thought of his mother. How she always kept the cabin stocked even when no one was coming. How she always left the door unlocked because she believed in providence, in the idea that shelter should never be denied to those who needed it. Maybe she had been right. "The baby," Marcus said. "She's sick." Elena's composure cracked. Tears welled in her eyes, though she fought them back with visible effort. "Her name is Lucia. She was born premature. Her lungs... The cold makes it worse. I don't have medicine. I don't have anything." The wet rattle of Lucia's breathing underscored every word. Marcus had heard that sound before. In field hospitals. In villages where children died because help came too late. "She needs a doctor." "I can't." Elena's voice rose with panic. "If I go into town, they'll find us. They have people everywhere. Police, officials. If I show my face, we're dead. All of us." Who's hunting you?" Elena hesitated. Her eyes moved to the table near the window where a single sheet of paper lay in the dim light. Handwritten, creased from being folded and refolded. "My husband wrote that letter before they killed him." Marcus walked to the table. The paper was worn at the edges, smudged with fingerprints, and what might have been tears. The handwriting was careful, deliberate, the script of a man who knew these might be his final words. Marcus did not read it. Not yet. He turned back to Elena. "Tell me everything." Elena sank into the chair nearest the fire, her body folding in on itself, as exhaustion finally overcame her defenses. Sophia immediately moved to her side, small hand gripping her mother's arm. Mateo remained frozen in place. Lucia's breathing filled the silence. "Daniel was a sheriff," Elena began. "Small town in Wyoming. Good man, honest man. Everyone said he was too honest for politics, too honest to survive." Her voice steadied as she spoke, finding strength in the telling. 8 months ago, he started investigating disappearances. Young women, teenagers. They would vanish from truck stops, bus stations, places where nobody looked twice at runaways. Local police said they were just drifters moving on. But Daniel knew better. Marcus listened without interrupting. He had learned long ago that silence drew out truth better than questions. He followed the trail. Late nights. Secret meetings. He trusted me with everything, always did. He said it was bigger than he thought. A trafficking ring. Not just local, regional, maybe national. Her hands trembled as she continued. He found names. Powerful names. A county judge, a state representative, police chiefs from 3 different towns. She paused, swallowing hard. And a federal agent. Someone high up. Someone who was supposed to protect people but was selling them instead. The letter, Marcus said. He wrote it all down. Elena nodded. He knew they were closing in on him. He told me if anything happened, I had to take the children and run. I had to get that letter to someone who could use it. What happened to him? The question hung in the air. Elena's face contorted with grief she had been holding back for weeks. They made it look like suicide. Her voice broke. Said he shot himself in his office. But I know my husband. He would never leave us. He would never give up. Sophia spoke, her voice small but fierce. Daddy didn't kill himself. The bad men came. I saw their cars. Marcus looked at the child. You saw them. Sophia nodded. She reached into her coat and pulled out a small notebook, its cover worn and dirty. I draw everything. Mama says I should forget, but I don't want to forget. Daddy said the truth matters. She opened the notebook and held it up. Marcus stared at the page. Drawn in crayon with surprising detail was a black SUV. Beside it, in childish but legible handwriting, a license plate number. His blood ran cold. The fire had burned low by the time Marcus finished reading the letter. Daniel Vasquez had been meticulous. Dates, locations, names. The trafficking route ran from the Mexican border through Wyoming, Montana, and into Canada. Young women were moved like cargo sold to buyers who paid in cash and asked no questions. At the center of it all was one name: Vincent Mercer, FBI Special Agent, 30-year veteran. Commendations and awards lining his office walls. The man responsible for overseeing human trafficking investigations across 4 states. The fox guarding the henhouse. Marcus set the letter down. His hands were steady, but something had shifted inside him. The numbness he had carried since Syria was cracking, giving way to something older and more familiar. Purpose. This agent, Marcus said. Vincent Mercer. Do you know where he's based? Elena shook her head. Daniel never told me specifics. He said the less I knew, the safer we'd be. A bitter laugh escaped her. He was wrong. Shadow appeared at the cabin door, having been let in from the truck. He moved through the room, checking each corner, then approached the children with unusual gentleness. His nose touched Mateo's hand. The boy did not react. But he did not pull away either. Shadow settled beside him, pressing his warm body against the child's side. A guardian choosing his post. Your dog, Elena said. He's different. Military K-9, retired. He's seen things too. He's not afraid of the children. He knows who needs protecting. Elena watched Shadow with Mateo, and for the first time, something other than fear crossed her face. Hope, maybe, or the memory of what hope used to feel like. What do we do now? She asked. Marcus looked at the letter on the table, at the sick baby struggling to breathe, at the silent boy and the brave girl and the mother who had given up everything to keep them alive. 47 hours ago, he had wanted silence. He had wanted nothing, Now something else filled the space where emptiness had been. Now, Marcus said, we survive. And then we make them pay. Lucia's coughing woke them at 3 a.m. Marcus had not truly slept. He had dozed in the chair near the door, one hand on his jacket where he had retrieved his sidearm from the truck, the other resting on Shadow's head. The dog woke the same instant Marcus did. The baby's cough was wet, rattling the sound of fluid where air should be. Elena was already there, holding Lucia upright, patting her back, murmuring prayers in Spanish that tumbled together with desperate English. "Come on, mija, breathe. Please breathe." Marcus moved quickly. He positioned himself beside Elena, taking the baby with gentle hands that belied their strength. He remembered the field medic who had taught him emergency pediatric care during a mission in Afghanistan. Children were not small adults. Their bodies worked differently, failed differently, needed different interventions. "Hot water," he said. "Fill the largest pot you can find. We need steam." Elena hesitated only a moment before moving. Sophia was already up following her mother, ready to help. Matteo remained in his corner, watching the only sign of distress, the way his hands twisted the blanket. Marcus held Lucia against his chest, keeping her upright, supporting her head. Her tiny heart raced against his palm. Her lips had a bluish tint that sent ice through his veins. "Stay with me, little one," he murmured. "Stay with me." The water began to boil. Steam rose into the cold cabin air. Marcus moved closer, letting the moisture reach Lucia's struggling lungs. He remembered the mountains of Afghanistan, the altitude sickness that took a child's breath, the same way the desperate measures that sometimes worked. Minutes passed, each one an eternity. Then Lucia coughed again, harder, deeper. And when she drew her next breath, it came easier. The rattle faded, though it did not disappear. Elena collapsed beside Marcus, her hand finding his arm, gripping hard. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." Marcus did not answer. He was looking at Shadow, who had positioned himself between the family and the door. The dog's ears were flat. His body was rigid. Someone was outside. Marcus handed Lucia to Elena in one smooth motion. "Take the children to the back room. Lock the door. Don't come out until I call you." Elena's eyes widened, but she did not argue. She gathered Sophia and Matteo with quiet efficiency, the movements of a woman who had learned to flee without hesitation. Marcus reached the window as Elena disappeared with the children. He pressed himself against the wall, peering through the gap in the curtains. A truck was parked 50 yards from the cabin. Its headlights were off, but exhaust rose from the tailpipe. Someone was inside, waiting, watching. Shadow's growl deepened. Marcus's hand found his weapon. The familiar weight steadied him, focused him, made the world narrow to simple equations of threat and response. The truck's door opened. A figure stepped out into the snow. Marcus watched the man approach. Tall, heavy coat, moving with confidence but not aggression. His hands were visible, empty, raised slightly as if expecting to be seen. He stopped 20 feet from the cabin. "I know you're watching," the man called out. "I'm not here to hurt anyone. I'm looking for my brother's wife." Marcus did not move. "My name is Noah. Noah Vasquez. Daniel was my brother." The man's voice cracked. "Please, I just want to know if they're alive." Marcus opened the door with his weapon raised. The man called Noah stood perfectly still, hands in the air, face illuminated by the faint light from inside the cabin. He was young, early 20s, with dark hair and the same strong jaw Marcus had seen in Daniel's photo on the letter. The family resemblance was unmistakable. "Give me one reason to trust you," Marcus said. Noah swallowed hard. "I don't have a reason. I just have the truth. My brother told me if anything happened to him, I should find Elena, protect her, get her somewhere safe." "How did you find this cabin?" "I didn't. I've been searching for 3 weeks. Every shelter, every motel, every back road in 3 states. Tonight I saw tire tracks turning off the highway. Fresh ones. I followed them." Shadow emerged from behind Marcus, circling Noah, with deliberate steps, sniffing, assessing. The dog completed his circuit and returned to Marcus's side. He did not growl. Marcus lowered his weapon slightly. "If you're lying, I will kill you." "I'm not lying." "Then come inside." Slowly. Noah walked toward the cabin with the careful movements of a man who understood he was seconds away from death. He crossed the threshold and stopped, eyes adjusting to the interior. "Elena," he called softly. The back room door opened. Elena stood in the frame, Lucia in her arms, Sophia and Matteo behind her. When she saw Noah, her composure shattered completely. "Oh God! Noah!" She ran to him, and he caught her, and for a moment the cabin was filled with the sound of grief, finding release of family reunited in the wreckage of loss. Marcus watched from the doorway. He did not holster his weapon. Trust was earned, not given. An hour later, the fire burned high again, and the story had grown darker. Noah sat at the table, his hands wrapped around a cup of coffee that had gone cold. His face was ashen, aged beyond his 23 years by what he had learned. "Vincent Mercer," he said. "I know that name." Marcus leaned forward. "How?" "Daniel called me the night before he died. He said he'd found the head of the snake, a federal agent running the whole operation." Noah's voice hardened. "He said if anything happened, I needed to disappear. Don't trust local police. Don't trust state authorities. Don't trust anyone with a badge." "He was right," Elena said bitterly. "The men who came for us wore uniforms." "Did you see their faces?" "No, but Sophia did." Noah turned to his niece. The girl sat near Shadow, one hand resting on the dog's fur, her notebook open in her lap. "Can you show me what you saw, sweetheart?" Sophia held up her drawings. The black SUV. The license plate. But there was more now. Faces sketched in crayon, rough but recognizable. A man with a scar across his chin. Another with glasses and a bald head. "These are the men who came to our house," Sophia said. "These are the men who took Daddy." Noah studied the drawings, his jaw tightening. "I've seen the one with the scar. He was at Daniel's funeral, standing in the back, watching." Marcus felt the puzzle pieces clicking together. The corruption ran deep, touched everything, left nowhere safe. "We can't stay here," he said. "If Noah found this cabin, others can too." "Where do we go?" Elena asked. Marcus thought of his former commander, the man who had sent him here to heal, the man who had spent 30 years in special operations and knew things about government corruption that never made the papers. "I know someone who might help, but I need to make a call." He stepped outside into the snow, pulling out his phone. The signal was weak, but present. He dialed a number he had memorized years ago. 2 rings, 2, then a voice like gravel and steel. "This better be important, Cole." "Commander, I found something. Something big." A pause. "I'm listening." Marcus told him everything. The widow, the children, the letter, the federal agent running a trafficking ring that had killed a good man and was hunting his family. When he finished, the silence stretched for a long moment. "Vincent Mercer," the commander finally said. "That name came up in an investigation 6 months ago. The file was sealed. Someone high up made it disappear. Can you unseal it? I can try. But Marcus, if you're right about this, you're not just fighting criminals. You're fighting the system, the people who are supposed to protect us." "I know. And you're choosing to do this anyway." Marcus looked back at the cabin. Through the window he could see Elena holding Lucia Shadow lying beside Matteo Sofia, showing Noah her drawings. A family held together by nothing but courage and the desperate hope that someone would help them. "Yes," Marcus said. "I am." Another pause. Then, "I'll see what I can do. Stay low. Trust no one." And Marcus, "Sir, don't die. That's an order." The line went dead. Marcus stood in the snow phone in hand-breath fogging in the frozen air. 3 months ago he had wanted to disappear, to become nothing, to let the cold take what the war had left behind. Now something burned in his chest that he barely recognized. Purpose. He walked back inside and closed the door against the winter wind. Dawn came slowly, gray light, bleeding through clouds that promised more snow. Marcus had not slept. He sat near the window, watching the road, while the others rested in shifts. Shadow remained at his post beside Matteo, the boy's hand occasionally reaching out in his sleep to touch the dog's fur. Elena appeared beside Marcus, moving quietly, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "You should rest," she said. "I've slept enough for one lifetime." She settled into the chair beside him. For a long moment, neither spoke. "Why are you helping us?" Elena finally asked. "You don't know us. You have no reason to risk your life." Marcus considered the question. The honest answer was complicated. The simple answer was the one he gave. "Because I watched good men die and couldn't save them. Because I came here looking for silence and found something else instead." He paused. "Because your husband died trying to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. That's what I spent 12 years doing. I'm not sure I know how to stop." Elena studied his profile in the dim light. "You carry something heavy. I can see it in your eyes." "So do you." "Yes, but mine has a name. It's called grief." She paused. "What's yours called?" Marcus did not answer for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "Guilt. I survived when I shouldn't have. My whole team died and I walked out alone. Every day I wake up wondering, why me? Why am I still here when better men aren't?" Elena reached out and touched his hand. The contact was light, brief, but it grounded him in a way nothing had in months. "Maybe you're still here because we needed you," she said. "Maybe God kept you alive for this." Marcus wanted to argue. He wanted to say he didn't believe in that kind of providence. But looking at her, at the children sleeping near the fire, at the letter on the table that could bring down an empire of evil, he found he couldn't speak the words. Maybe she was right. Maybe survival wasn't punishment. Maybe it was purpose. The sound of engines broke the silence of morning. Marcus was on his feet, instantly, weapon drawn, moving to the window. Shadow was already at the door, hackles raised, a growl building in his chest. 3 vehicles were coming up the road, black SUVs with tinted windows moving fast, throwing snow in their wake. "Elena," Marcus's voice was calm, controlled. "Get the children. Back room. Now." Elena didn't hesitate. She swept through the cabin, gathering her children with quiet efficiency. Sophia grabbed her notebook. Matteo moved without being told, his eyes still empty, but his body responding to the urgency. Noah appeared beside Marcus, his face pale. "How did they find us?" "Doesn't matter. They're here." Marcus calculated. 3 vehicles meant at least 6 men, probably more. The cabin had 1 door, 2 windows, and walls that wouldn't stop bullets. In a straight fight, he would lose. So he wouldn't fight straight. "Noah, take Elena and the children out the back window. Head into the trees and keep moving until you hit the river. Cross it and wait on the other side." "What about you?" "I'll buy you time." "That's suicide." Marcus smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I've survived worse." Elena appeared at his side, Lucia in her arms. Her eyes were fierce, determined, afraid. "Don't die," she said. "Promise me." "I don't make promises I can't keep." He met her gaze. "But I'll try." She grabbed the letter from the table, folded it into her coat. Then, without warning, she leaned forward and kissed his cheek. "For luck," she whispered. Then she was gone, following Noah toward the back of the cabin, children in tow. Marcus turned to face the door. Shadow stood beside him, unwavering. "Ready, boy." The dog's growl was his answer. Marcus raised his weapon. The SUVs stopped. Doors opened. And the wolves came for the door. The first man through the door died before he could raise his weapon. Marcus fired twice. Center mass, dropping him where he stood. The second man stumbled over the body and Shadow was on him instantly, jaws clamping around his forearm, teeth shredding through jacket and flesh. The man screamed high and desperate, trying to shake free. Marcus ended the struggle with a single shot. 2 down, at least 4 more outside. Gunfire erupted through the windows, shattering glass, splintering wood. Marcus dropped behind the heavy oak table his mother had bought at an estate sale 30 years ago. Bullets punched through the walls, but the table held solid American craftsmanship, saving his life. Shadow released the dead man and pressed himself against Marcus, panting but calm. Blood stained his muzzle. "Good boy," Marcus breathed. "Stay low." He counted shots. 3 weapons firing from the front. At least 1 more circling toward the back where Elena had gone. That one worried him most. Marcus grabbed a cast-iron skillet from the counter and hurled it through the side window. The crash drew fire bullets, chasing the sound. In that moment of distraction, Marcus rose, aimed through the shattered front window, and dropped a 3rd man who had been advancing toward the porch. Return fire drove him back down. A bullet grazed his shoulder, burning across, skin drawing blood, but missing bone. He barely felt it. "Federal agents," a voice shouted from outside. "Throw down your weapon and surrender." Marcus almost laughed. Federal agents did not arrive in unmarked SUVs to murder women and children. Federal agents did not shoot first and announce themselves second. These were the men Daniel Vasquez had exposed. The killers wearing badges. "Shadow. Back door. Go." The dog understood immediately. He bolted across the room, low and fast, disappearing into the hallway. Marcus heard him hit the back door, heard the wood give way under 70 pounds of trained military canine. Now came the hard part. Marcus pulled a lighter from his pocket. His mother had always kept lamp oil in the cabin, old-fashioned hurricane lamps for when the power went out. He found the jug under the sink, doused the floor near the door, and flicked the lighter. Fire spread fast, hungry for the dry wood, racing toward the entrance. Smoke billowed upward, thick and choking. Marcus ran. He hit the back door at full speed, diving through the frame, rolling through snow as gunfire tracked his movement. A bullet tugged at his jacket. Another kicked up powder inches from his face. He kept moving, zigzagging toward the tree line, using every piece of cover the terrain offered. Behind him, the cabin burned. His mother's cabin. Her memories. Her ghost. He did not look back. The trees swallowed him, and he ran harder following the tracks Elena had left in the snow, praying he was not too late. He found them at the river. Elena stood at the water's edge. Lucia clutched to her chest, staring at the current that moved black and fast beneath thin sheets of ice. Noah was already in the water, waist deep, gasping from cold, reaching back for Sophia, who clung to the bank with white-knuckled hands. Matteo stood frozen, unable to move, his small body locked in place by terror older than words. "We have to cross," Noah shouted. "It's the only way." "He can't," Elena's voice cracked. "Matteo, please, baby, we have to go." The boy did not respond. His eyes were fixed on something only he could see, some memory replaying behind them that held him prisoner. Marcus reached them in seconds. He did not slow down. He scooped Matteo into his arms, the boy rigid as wood, and plunged into the river. The cold hit like a physical blow, stealing breath, numbing legs, turning muscle to stone. Marcus pushed forward anyway, one arm holding Matteo above water, the other fighting the current. His boots found purchase on slick rocks, slipped, found purchase again. Beside him, Shadow swam powerful strokes, cutting through the current, heading for the far bank. "Come on!" Marcus shouted to Elena. "Now!" She did not hesitate. She waded in. Lucia held high, gasping, as the water reached her chest. Noah grabbed Sophia and followed the girl's arms wrapped tight around his neck. They were halfway across when the shooting started again. Bullets splashed around them, the shooters firing blind through the trees. Marcus shielded Matteo with his body taking a position between the gunfire and the children. A round struck the water inches from Elena's shoulder. She screamed, but kept moving. The far bank came up fast. Marcus hauled himself out, pulling Matteo with him, then reached back for Elena. His hand closed around her arm, and he lifted her clear of the water, Lucia crying against her chest. Noah emerged last, dragging Sophia onto solid ground, both of them shaking violently from cold. "Move," Marcus commanded. "Into the trees, don't stop." They ran. Wet clothes freezing against skin breath, coming in ragged clouds, feet stumbling over roots and rocks. The gunfire faded behind them, the river creating a barrier that bought precious time. Marcus did not know how long they ran. Minutes felt like hours. The cold, sapped strength, slowed thoughts made every step a battle against the body's desperate need to stop. Finally, he spotted it. A hunting blind his grandfather had built decades ago, half hidden beneath fallen branches and winter debris. Small, barely enough room for all of them, but sheltered from wind and sight. "In here. Everyone inside." They crawled into the blind, pressing together for warmth, bodies shaking, teeth chattering. Shadow pushed his way in last, positioning himself at the entrance, eyes fixed on the direction they had come. For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sounds were breathing and the distant rush of the river. Then Sophia's voice, small and trembling, "Is Daddy's cabin gone?" Marcus looked at her. The question held more weight than a child should carry. "Yes," he said, "but we're still here. That's what matters." Sophia considered this. Then she reached into her coat and pulled out her notebook, waterlogged, but intact. "I saved the pictures," she said. "The bad men's faces. We still have them." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. This child, 7 years old, had just fled through gunfire and freezing water, and her first thought was preserving evidence. "You're brave," he told her. "Braver than most soldiers I've known." Sophia did not smile. "Daddy said brave means doing scary things anyway. He said the truth is worth being scared for." Elena pulled her daughter close, tears mixing with river water on her face. "He was right, mija. He was always right." The hours that followed blurred together in a haze of cold and exhaustion. Marcus forced them to keep moving once the immediate danger passed. Hypothermia would kill them as surely as bullets if they stayed still. He led them through the forest, following game trails his grandfather had taught him to read, heading toward a road he remembered from childhood summers. Noah carried Mateo, now the boy, still silent, still locked somewhere deep inside himself. Elena stumbled every few steps, her strength nearly gone, but she refused to stop. Lucia had fallen into a fitful sleep, her breathing still labored but steady. Shadow ranged ahead, checking the path, doubling back to confirm they were not followed. By midday, they reached the road. Marcus flagged down the first vehicle that passed an old pickup, driven by a rancher with weathered hands and suspicious eyes. The suspicion faded when he saw the children replaced by the instinctive protectiveness that lived in anyone who worked land and raised families. "What the hell happened to you folks?" "Car accident," Marcus lied smoothly. "Went off the road in the storm. We need to get somewhere warm." The rancher did not ask more questions. He drove them to his farmhouse where his wife took one look at the shivering children and transformed into a force of nature, producing blankets and hot soup and dry clothes as if by magic. Marcus watched Elena accept the kindness with trembling hands and wet eyes. She had been running so long she had forgotten what trust looked like. "Thank you," she whispered to the rancher's wife. "Thank you." "Hush now. Warm up first. Thank me later." While the others recovered, Marcus stepped outside to call his commander. The phone rang twice before the familiar voice answered. "Tell me you're not dead, Cole." "Not yet. But they found us. 3 confirmed kills, maybe more. The cabin is gone." A pause. "Where are you now?" "Safe. For the moment. What did you find on Mercer?" The commander's exhale was heavy. "More than I expected. Vincent Mercer is connected to a network that goes deeper than trafficking. Money laundering. Witness intimidation. At least 3 suspicious deaths of people who tried to expose him." "Daniel Vasquez?" "One of them. Marcus, this man has protection at levels I can't penetrate. If you go after him directly, you'll disappear. No trial. No justice. Just gone." "Then what do we do?" "The FBI has an internal affairs division. Clean agents who investigate dirty ones. I have a contact there, someone I trust. If you can get that letter to her, she can start an official investigation. One that Mercer can't bury." "Who?" "Special Agent Rachel Torres. She's been trying to build a case against Mercer for 2 years. She just needs evidence he can't dismiss." Marcus looked through the window at Elena, who was helping Sophia into dry clothes, her hands gentle despite her exhaustion. "Where do I find Torres?" "Denver field office. But Marcus, you can't just walk in. Mercer has eyes everywhere. If he finds out you're coming, he'll have people waiting." "Then we don't let him find out." "How?" Marcus thought of Shadow of the skills he had spent 12 years honing, of the instincts that had kept him alive through hell. "I'll figure it out. Send me Torres's contact information. Secure channel." "Done." "And Marcus." "Sir. Those kids. The widow. They're not your mission. You don't owe them anything." Marcus watched Mateo sit motionless by the fire, watched Sophia show her notebook to the rancher's wife, watched Elena hold Lucia close and whisper prayers. "Yes, I do," he said. "I just didn't know it until now." He ended the call. That night, gathered in the rancher's living room, Marcus told them the plan. "Denver is 400 miles from here. We need to reach an FBI agent named Rachel Torres. She can use your husband's letter to bring down Mercer and everyone connected to him." Elena's face tightened. "How do we know we can trust her?" "We don't, but my commander does. and I trust him with my life." "You trusted the military," Noah said quietly. "Look where that got you." The words hit harder than Noah intended. Marcus felt the familiar weight settle in his chest, the memory of 6 flag-draped coffins. "You're right," he admitted. "I trusted the wrong people. Good men died because someone sold us out. I've spent 3 months trying to figure out how to live with that." He met Noah's eyes. "But hiding doesn't bring justice. Running doesn't protect the next family Mercer destroys. The only way out is through." Noah held his gaze for a long moment. Then he nodded. "What do you need from us? Stay alive. Stay together. Trust me to get you there." Elena spoke, her voice steady for the first time in days. "And if Mercer's people find us before we reach Denver—" Marcus looked at Shadow, who lay at Mateo's feet, the boy's hand resting on the dog's back. "Then they'll learn what happens when they threaten my family." The word hung in the air. Family. He had not meant to say it, but once spoken he could not take it back. Elena's eyes glistened. She did not look away. They left before dawn. The rancher gave them his old truck, refusing payment, pressing the keys into Marcus's hand with a grip that said more than words. "My boy served," he said. "Afghanistan. Came back different. Took years before he found his way again." His eyes moved to the children in the truck. "You take care of those little ones. World's hard enough without losing more good people to bad men." "I will." Marcus drove south, avoiding highways, sticking to back roads that wound through farmland and small towns where no one asked questions. Shadow sat in the back with the children, his presence a comfort that words could not provide. Mateo had not spoken, but something had shifted. His hand stayed on Shadow's fur fingers, moving in small strokes. Once Marcus caught his eyes in the rearview mirror, and the boy did not look away. It was progress. Small, fragile, but real. Elena sat beside Marcus, the letter inside her coat, pressed against her heart. "Tell me about Syria," she said quietly. Marcus's hands tightened on the wheel. "Why? Because you know everything about my nightmare. I want to know about yours." He drove in silence for several miles, the road unspooling ahead, the weight of memory pressing down. We were hunting a high-value target. Terrorist leader responsible for dozens of bombings. Intel said he was meeting with arms dealers in a village near the Turkish border. We went in at night, 6 operators and our support team. His voice remained flat, controlled, the way he had learned to speak about operations. "It was a trap. Someone leaked our position. They were waiting for us. Ambush from 3 sides. I watched my team leader take a round in the throat. My best friend bled out in my arms while I tried to stop the bleeding with my bare hands." Elena said nothing. She just listened. "I fought my way out. Killed more men than I want to count. Made it to extraction covered in blood that wasn't mine." He paused. "They gave me a medal. Said I was a hero. But heroes don't survive while their brothers die. Heroes don't walk out alone." "You didn't choose to survive." "No. But I have to choose what to do with it." Elena reached over and placed her hand on his arm. The touch was light questioning, ready to withdraw if unwelcome. He did not pull away. "Maybe this is what you do with it," she said. "Maybe we're your second chance." Marcus thought of his commander's words. "Those kids, the widow, they're not your mission." The commander was wrong. They were exactly his mission. They had just started. The motel appeared as the sun began to set, a faded sign advertising cheap rates and cable television. Marcus pulled into the parking lot, scanning for threats out of habit, finding none. "One night," he said. We rest, resupply, and leave at first light. Elena nodded. Exhaustion etched into every line of her face. The children had fallen asleep in the back. Lucia finally breathing easy, Sophia curled against Shadow Mateo's hand, still resting on the dog's back. Noah went to get rooms while Marcus kept watch. The parking lot was nearly empty, just a few cars and a semi-truck at the far end. Normal. Quiet. Safe. But safe was a lie Marcus no longer believed in. He moved the family inside quickly, 2 adjoining rooms with a connecting door. Shadow took his position near the window, watching the parking lot through a gap in the curtains. Get some sleep, Marcus told Elena. I'll take first watch. You need rest too. I've functioned on less. She hesitated, wanting to argue, but exhaustion won. She gathered the children and disappeared into the adjoining room, leaving the door cracked. Marcus sat in darkness, weapon in his lap, listening to the sounds of the motel settling around him. His phone buzzed, a message from his commander. Torres confirmed. She's expecting you. But Marcus, be careful. Word is Mercer knows someone is coming. He's put people on the roads. You're not the hunter anymore. You're the hunted. Marcus read the message twice, then deleted it. He looked at the connecting door, at the sleeping family beyond it, at the letter that could bring down an empire of evil. The hunted. He had been hunted before, in deserts and mountains and cities where death waited around every corner. He had survived then. He would survive now. But this time, he was not fighting alone. This time he had something worth protecting. Something that made survival mean more than just breathing. He checked his weapon, counted his ammunition, and settled in to wait for morning. Outside, snow began to fall again. And somewhere in the darkness, the wolves were circling. Marcus saw the headlights at 3 in the morning. A single vehicle moving slowly through the motel parking lot, stopping at each car, a flashlight beam sweeping through windows. Searching. He was on his feet, instantly moving to Elena's room, shaking her awake with one hand while keeping his eyes on the window. We need to go, now! Elena did not ask questions. 3 weeks of running had trained that instinct out of her. She gathered the children in darkness, Sophia helping Mateo into his coat, Lucia stirring but not waking. Noah appeared at the connecting door. What's happening? Company. Back exit. Move. They slipped out through the rear of the motel. Shadow leading the way, his body low and silent. The truck was parked on the far side of the building, hidden from the searching vehicle by the motel itself. Marcus loaded them in quickly, keeping the headlights off as he started the engine. The searching vehicle had reached the front office now, its occupant stepping out, walking toward the night clerk's window. Hold on. He pulled out of the lot, using only moonlight to navigate, turning onto the back road that ran parallel to the highway. Only when they were a mile away did he allow himself to breathe. How did they find us? Noah's voice was tight with fear. Credit card, Marcus said. I used cash, but someone might have recognized the truck, or they're checking every motel between here and Denver. That's insane. There must be hundreds. Mercer has resources, and desperate men with power don't worry about manpower. Elena held Lucia close, the baby's breath warm against her neck. How much further to Denver? 200 miles, maybe 8 hours on back roads. Can we make it? Marcus checked the rearview mirror. The road behind them was empty, but that meant nothing. Emptiness was where danger hid. We'll make it, he said, or we'll die trying. The words hung in the air, brutal in their honesty. No one spoke for a long time after that. Dawn found them on a dirt road cutting through farmland, the truck bouncing over ruts frozen solid by winter cold. Marcus had not slept in over 30 hours, but his body had learned long ago to function without rest. Adrenaline and purpose were better fuel than sleep. Sophia sat in the back with her notebook open, adding details to her drawings. The license plates she had memorized. The faces of the men who came to her house. The scar on one man's chin, the glasses on another's face. Sophia. She looked up at Marcus's voice. Those drawings might save a lot of lives. You know that, right? The girl nodded solemnly. Daddy said evidence is important. He said bad people get away with things because good people don't write them down. Your daddy was a smart man. He was the smartest. Her voice wavered. I miss him every day. Marcus thought of his own team. The men he had trained with, fought beside, watched die. He missed them every day, too. Missing someone means they mattered, he said. It means they're still with you even when they're gone. Sophia considered this. Then she went back to her drawing, her small hand steady despite everything. They stopped for gas at a station so small it did not appear on any map. Marcus paid cash, kept his head down, watched the road while the tank filled. Shadow stayed in the truck with the family, his presence a deterrent to anyone who might look too closely. The attendant was an old man with kind eyes and arthritic hands. Long drive, he asked. Family trip, Marcus said. Visiting relatives. In this weather must be some relatives. Marcus forced a smile. The best kind. The old man nodded, accepting the lie with the grace of someone who had learned not to ask questions. Be careful out there. Roads are getting worse. Storm coming in from the west. Thanks for the warning. Marcus climbed back into the truck and pulled away. In the rearview mirror, he saw the old man watching them go, his face thoughtful. Not suspicious. Just curious. But curiosity could be dangerous when the wrong people came asking questions. 2 hours later, Elena finally read the full letter. She had carried it against her chest since they fled the cabin, the paper worn soft by her body heat, the words burned into her mind without her ever looking at them. But now, with the children sleeping, and Noah dozing in the passenger seat, she unfolded it and read every line her husband had written. Marcus watched her face in the mirror, watched the blood drain from her cheeks, watched her hands begin to shake. What is it? Elena's voice came out strangled. Daniel didn't just find names, he found the source, where it all started. Mercer, no. Mercer is the protector, the one who makes problems disappear. She looked up, eyes wide with horror. But there's someone above him. Someone who built the whole network. Daniel traced the money. It goes back 20 years. Who? Elena read the name aloud, and Marcus felt his blood turn to ice. Senator William Crawford. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Crawford was a household name. A war hero turned politician. Chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. The man who had personally approved the mission in Syria. The mission where Marcus's team died. Pull over. What? Pull over. Now. Marcus guided the truck to the side of the road, his hands gripping the wheel so hard his knuckles went white. His mind was racing, connecting dots he had never seen before. The leaked intelligence that killed his team. The buried investigation that followed. The way the whole thing disappeared into classified files that no one could access. Marcus, what's wrong? He turned to face Elena, and she flinched at the look in his eyes. The mission that killed my team. The ambush in Syria. His voice was barely controlled. Senator Crawford authorized it. He was briefed on every detail. He knew exactly where we'd be and when. Elena's face went pale. You think he... I think someone sold us out. I think someone gave our position to the enemy. And I think the man who did it is the same man your husband was trying to expose. The connection was staggering. Two separate tragedies, two grieving families linked by the same corrupt network. Daniel Vasquez had died trying to expose the truth. Marcus's team had died because someone wanted to protect it. "This isn't just about trafficking anymore," Marcus said. "This is about power, about a man willing to kill American soldiers to protect his secrets." Elena looked at the letter in her hands. Daniel didn't know about Syria. He couldn't have. But he found the money trail. Crawford has been taking payments from cartels for decades. Human trafficking, drug smuggling, murder for hire. All of it protected by his position. And Mercer is his cleaner. The FBI agent who makes witnesses disappear. Elena's voice hardened. "The man who killed my husband." Marcus stared at the road ahead, his mind working through implications. This was bigger than he had imagined, bigger than a corrupt federal agent. They were going against a United States senator with the power to destroy anyone who threatened him. "We can't just hand this to Torres," he said. "If Crawford finds out we're coming, he'll have us killed before we reach the FBI office." Then what do we do? Marcus thought of his commander. The man who had spent 30 years in special operations, who knew secrets that never made the papers, who had contacts in places that officially did not exist. "We need backup. Real backup. People Crawford can't touch." He pulled out his phone and dialed. His commander answered on the first ring. "Tell me you're still alive." "Barely. We have a problem. The letter names Senator Crawford." Silence on the line. Then, "Say that again." "William Crawford, chairman of the Intelligence Committee. He's the money behind the trafficking ring. Has been for 20 years. The commander's exhale was heavy. "Christ, Marcus. Do you understand what you're saying? I understand that the same man who killed Daniel Vasquez probably killed my team. I understand that he's been protected by the government he swore to serve, and I understand that if we don't stop him, more people will die." Another long pause. "Torres can't handle this alone. Crawford has allies throughout the Bureau. If she moves too fast, she'll be shut down before she can file a single charge." "Then who can help us? I know someone. A journalist. Investigative reporter who's been chasing Crawford for years, but could never get enough evidence. If you can get her the letter and the girl's drawings, she can break the story wide open. Media exposure. Public pressure. Harder to make people disappear when the whole world is watching." "Where do I find her?" "Denver. Her name is Sarah Chen. Works for an independent outlet that Crawford hasn't been able to buy. I'll send you her contact." "And Torres? We still need her. The journalist creates pressure. Torres provides legal action. Together they can bring Crawford down. But Marcus, you have to understand, the moment this story breaks, you become the most wanted man in America. Crawford will throw everything he has at you." Marcus looked back at Elena and the sleeping children. Sophia with her notebook of evidence, Matteo with his haunted silence, Lucia with her fragile breathing. Let him try. They reached the outskirts of Denver as the sun began to set. Marcus had driven for 14 hours straight, stopping only for fuel and bathroom breaks. His body screamed for rest, but rest was a luxury he could not afford. Not yet. He pulled into a truck stop on the edge of the city, parking between two semis where the truck would be hidden from casual observation. "Noah, stay with the family. Shadow guard." The dog positioned himself at the truck's window, eyes scanning the parking lot. Marcus walked to the truck stop diner, found a payphone in the back, and dialed the number his commander had sent. A woman's voice answered. "Who is this?" "My name is Marcus Cole. Commander Harrison gave me your number." Pause. The SEAL, former. "Harrison said you might call. He said you have something that could destroy William Crawford. A letter, written by a sheriff who was murdered for what he knew, and drawings from his daughter, 7 years old, who witnessed the killers. Where are you? Denver, East Side. Truck stop off the highway. Stay there. I'll come to you. 1 hour. The line went dead. Marcus returned to the truck and waited. The hour passed slowly each minute, stretching into eternity. Elena sat beside him, the letter clutched in her hands, her eyes fixed on the parking lot. What if she doesn't come? She'll come. What if it's a trap? Marcus checked his weapon. Then I'll handle it. At exactly 58 minutes, a silver sedan pulled into the lot. A woman stepped out, small and lean with sharp eyes that swept the area before focusing on Marcus's truck. Sarah Chen. Marcus stepped out to meet her, keeping his hands visible. Cole, yes. She studied him with the intensity of someone who had learned to read lies for a living. You look like hell. Been a long week. I can imagine. Her gaze moved to the truck, to the faces visible through the window. Those the witnesses. A widow and 3 children. The youngest is less than a year old. When something shifted in Sarah's face, compassion breaking through professional detachment. Let me see the letter. Elena emerged from the truck, holding the paper like a holy relic. She handed it to Sarah without speaking. The journalist read slowly, her expression darkening with each paragraph. When she finished, she looked up at Elena. Your husband was a brave man. He was the best man I ever knew. This letter will destroy careers, maybe lives. Once I publish, there's no going back. You understand that Elena met her eyes. My husband died for that letter. My children have been hunted across 3 states. We've already lost everything. There's nothing left to go back to. Sarah nodded slowly. Then let's make sure he didn't die for nothing. She pulled out her phone and began taking photos of the letter, the drawings, everything Sophia had recorded. Her fingers moved quickly, efficiently, the practiced motions of someone who had documented evidence before. I need 24 hours. Time to verify to contact sources to make sure this story is bulletproof before it goes live. We don't have 24 hours, Marcus said. Crawford's people are hunting us. They almost found us last night. Then we need to get you somewhere safe, somewhere they can't reach. Where? Sarah hesitated. I have a contact at the FBI, Rachel Torres. She's been building a case against Mercer for 2 years. I know. That's where we were headed before we found out about Crawford. Good, because I just spoke with her an hour ago. She's ready to move, but she needs you to testify. All of you. On record. When? Tonight. The Denver field office. She's arranged a secure meeting room. No one else will know you're there. Marcus felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. Walking into an FBI building was a risk. If Crawford had people inside, they would be trapped. But staying on the run was also a risk. Eventually, luck ran out. We'll do it. Sarah nodded. I'll lead you there. Stay close. They followed her sedan through the city streets as night fell over Denver. Marcus watched every car that passed, every pedestrian who looked too long, every shadow that moved wrong. His instincts screamed that something was coming, but he could not identify what. The FBI building appeared ahead, a fortress of concrete and glass. Sarah pulled into the underground parking garage, Marcus following close behind. They parked. They gathered the children. They walked toward the elevators. And that was when Marcus heard it. The click of a safety being released. Nobody move. Men emerged from behind concrete pillars, weapons drawn. 6 of them. Professional. Cold-eyed. Leading them was a man in a dark suit with an FBI badge on his belt. Tall, silver-haired, a face that had appeared on news broadcasts discussing justice and accountability. Vincent Mercer. Marcus Cole, Mercer said, his voice smooth as silk. You've caused me a great deal of trouble. Sarah stepped forward. This is a federal building. You can't what arrest dangerous fugitives. That's exactly what I can do. Mercer's smile did not reach his eyes. You're all under arrest for conspiracy against the United States government. That's a lie, Elena's voice cracked with fury. You murdered my husband. You've been hunting us for weeks. Careful, Mrs. Vasquez. Making false accusations against a federal agent is a serious crime. He gestured to his men. Take them into custody. Separate the children from the adults. No. Elena clutched Lucia tight, pulling Sofia and Matteo behind her. You're not touching my children. Marcus positioned himself between Mercer's men and the family. Shadow stood beside him, growling, ready to attack on command. Stand down, Cole. You're outnumbered and outgunned. There's no winning this fight. Marcus's mind raced. 6 armed men, enclosed space, children behind him. No good options. But he had survived worse odds. Shadow. Ready. The dog's growl deepened, muscles coiling. Mercer laughed. What are you going to do, sick your dog on federal agents? You'll all be dead before he takes 3 steps. Maybe. But you'll be first. The 2 men locked eyes. The parking garage fell silent, except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Then a voice echoed from the elevators. Lower your weapons, all of you. Rachel Torres stepped forward, flanked by a dozen agents with rifles raised. Her face was stone, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had prepared for this moment. Vincent Mercer, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, human trafficking, and treason against the United States. Mercer's face went pale. Torres, what the hell do you think you're doing? My job. She gestured to her team. Take him. For a moment, Marcus thought Mercer would surrender. The man's eyes darted between the armed agents, calculating odds, weighing options. Then he moved. His hand closed around Elena's arm, yanking her forward, pressing a pistol against her temple. Lucia screamed. The children scattered. Nobody moves or she dies. Marcus froze. Every instinct screamed at him to act, but Elena's eyes locked with his, wide with terror, silently begging him not to get her killed. Let her go, Mercer. It's over. It's not over until I say it's over. Mercer's voice had lost its smooth composure, cracking with desperation. Crawford will have your heads, all of you. You have no idea what you're dealing with. We know exactly what we're dealing with, Torres said. Senator Crawford is being arrested as we speak. His accounts are frozen. His allies are running. You have nothing left. Something broke in Mercer's face. The realization that the empire he had served was crumbling around him. His grip on Elena loosened for just a moment. Marcus moved. He covered the distance in 2 steps, his hand closing around Mercer's wrist, forcing the gun away from Elena's head. They struggled, bodies locked together, the weapon trapped between them. Shadow launched himself at Mercer's legs, jaws closing around his thigh. The man screamed, his grip failing. The gun went off. Marcus felt the bullet tear through his side, a white-hot lance of pain that stole his breath. He did not let go. He twisted Mercer's wrist until bone cracked, until the gun clattered to the concrete floor. Torres's agents swarmed forward, tackling Mercer to the ground, pinning him as he cursed and thrashed. Elena fell into Marcus's arms, sobbing against his chest. It's over, he whispered. It's over. Then his legs gave out, and the world went dark. The bullet had torn through Marcus's side, missing his kidney by less than an inch. He knew this because a doctor was telling him, her voice cutting through the fog of anesthesia and pain medication. Words floated past him like debris in a flood. Surgery, blood loss, lucky to be alive, lucky. Marcus wanted to laugh. He had stopped believing in luck the day his team died in Syria. What he believed in now was something harder to name. Purpose, maybe, or stubbornness too deep to kill. "Mr. Cole, can you hear me?" He forced his eyes open. The hospital room was bright, too bright, the fluorescent lights stabbing into his skull. A woman in scrubs stood beside his bed, clipboard in hand, concern written across her face. "The children," Marcus rasped. "The family, where are they? They're safe. FBI protective custody. Agent Torres arranged everything." Marcus tried to sit up. Pain exploded through his side, stealing his breath, dropping him back against the pillow. "Easy. You lost a lot of blood. The surgery went well, but you need to rest." "I need to see them." "Mr. Cole, now." The doctor stared at him for a long moment, reading something in his eyes that made her step back. "I'll see what I can do." She left. Marcus lay in the silence, counting heartbeats, fighting the medication that wanted to pull him under. He would not sleep, not until he knew they were okay. 20 minutes later, the door opened. Elena walked in slowly, as if afraid he might disappear. Her face was drawn, exhausted, but her eyes were clear for the first time since he had met her. The hunted look was gone, replaced by something that might have been peace. "You're awake." "Barely." She crossed to his bedside and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, trembling slightly. "They said you almost died." "I've almost died before. Gets easier every time." Elena did not smile. "Don't joke about that. Not now." "Who's joking?" She squeezed his hand hard enough to hurt. He let her. "The children," he said. "Are they? They're fine. Torres has us in a safe house. Armed guards. The works." She paused. "Sophia hasn't stopped asking about you. She wants to show you her new drawings." "What's she drawing now?" "You, fighting the bad men. She calls you her hero." Something tightened in Marcus's chest that had nothing to do with the bullet wound. "I'm not a hero. You saved our lives. You took a bullet for me." Elena's voice cracked. "What do you call that?" Marcus looked at her, at the tears she was fighting back, at the strength she had carried through weeks of terror. "Instinct," he said. "Training, I don't know." "I know." She leaned closer, her face inches from his. "I call it love." The word hung in the air between them. Marcus felt his heart stutter, felt the medication and the pain and the exhaustion fall away, leaving only this moment. "Elena, don't." She pressed a finger to his lips. "Don't say anything yet. Just rest. We'll have time for words later." She stayed with him until he fell asleep, her hand never leaving his. 3 days passed before Marcus could stand without help. The bullet had done more damage than he wanted to admit. The doctors talked about physical therapy, about recovery timelines, about permanent limitations. Marcus listened and ignored most of it. His body had been broken before. It always healed. What mattered now was what was happening outside the hospital walls. Sarah Chen's story had broken the morning after Mercer's arrest. The headline screamed across every news outlet in the country: Senator Crawford arrested in massive trafficking conspiracy. The details that followed were devastating. 20 years of corruption, hundreds of victims, a network that stretched from the Mexican border to Canada. Daniel Vasquez's name appeared in every article. The small-town sheriff who had uncovered the truth and paid with his life. The widow who had carried his evidence across 3 states. The children who had witnessed their father's murder. And Marcus Cole, the Navy SEAL who had protected them. Torres visited on the 4th day, looking exhausted but triumphant. "Mercer is talking," she said. "Trying to cut a deal. He's giving us everything. Names, dates, locations. Crawford's entire operation is coming apart. What about Crawford himself? Denied bail. Too much flight risk. His lawyers are already talking plea bargain, but the prosecutor wants to go to trial. Make an example. Marcus absorbed this. And my team, the Syria ambush. Torres's face tightened. We're looking into it. The intelligence leak that cost your men their lives, it came from Crawford's office. He sold your position to a weapons dealer who was competing with his trafficking partners. Your team was collateral damage in a business dispute. The words hit Marcus like a second bullet. His brothers, the men he had trained with and fought beside, had died because a senator wanted to eliminate a business rival. I want to testify. Marcus. I want to look Crawford in the eye and tell the world what he did. I want him to know that the men he killed have names, have families, have someone who will never stop fighting for justice. Torres studied him for a long moment. Are you sure you're ready for that? The defense will come after you. Your record, your mental health, everything. Let them try. A faint smile crossed Torres's face. I was hoping you'd say that. The safe house was a modest home in a quiet Denver suburb, unremarkable in every way, except for the armed agents stationed at every entrance. Marcus arrived in a wheelchair, his body still too weak for extended walking, his pride too stubborn to show how much the journey had cost him. Elena met him at the door, her face lighting up in a way that made the pain worthwhile. You're here? Couldn't stay away. She leaned down and kissed him, soft, brief, a promise of more to come. The children want to see you. Lead the way. Sophia was the first to reach him, throwing herself against his legs with a force that made him grunt in pain. She did not notice, too busy talking. I drew you fighting the bad man and shadow biting him, and Mama crying, but Happy crying, want to see, show me everything. She dragged him toward the living room where Mateo sat on the floor with Shadow. The boy looked up as Marcus entered, and something flickered in his eyes. Recognition. Trust. He did not speak, but he moved closer to Marcus's wheelchair, close enough to touch. Marcus reached out and ruffled his hair. Hey, buddy. Missed you. Mateo leaned into the touch, a small gesture that meant more than words. Lucia was asleep in a portable crib, her breathing steady and clear. The medication Torres had arranged was working. The baby's color was better, her lungs stronger. Elena sat beside Marcus, her hand finding his again. We've been watching the news, she said. The whole world knows what Daniel found, what he died for. How does it feel? She considered the question. Strange. For weeks I thought we were alone, that no one would believe us, that we would die in the snow and no one would ever know the truth. She paused. Now everyone knows, and Daniel is being called a hero. He was a hero. I know. I just wish he was here to see it. Marcus squeezed her hand. He sees it. Somewhere, somehow, he knows what you did, what you survived. He's proud of you. Elena's eyes glistened. You really believe that? I believe that love doesn't end when people die. It just changes form, becomes something you carry instead of something you hold. She leaned her head against his shoulder. That's beautiful. I stole it from my grandfather. He said it after my grandmother passed. He sounds like a wise man. He was the best man I ever knew, until I met your husband. They sat in silence, watching the children letting the weight of everything that had happened settle into something they could carry. The first week in the safe house passed slowly. Marcus's strength returned in increments, his body responding to rest and care the way it always had. By the 5th day, he could walk without assistance. By the 7th, he was helping Elena with the children. His presence filling a space that had been empty since Daniel's death. Sophia attached herself to him completely. She followed him everywhere, showing him drawings, asking questions, demanding stories about his missions. Marcus edited heavily, turning firefights into adventures, casualties into victories, making war sound like something a child could understand. Matteo remained silent, but his behavior changed. He stayed close to Marcus, watching him, with eyes that saw too much. When Marcus sat down, Matteo sat beside him. When Marcus moved, Matteo followed. The boy had found a new anchor, a new source of safety in a world that had proven itself dangerous. Shadow served as the bridge between them. The dog seemed to understand what Matteo needed, positioning himself, so the boy always had something warm and alive to touch. At night, Shadow slept at the foot of Matteo's bed, guarding him from nightmares. Elena watched all of this with eyes that grew softer each day. "You're good with them," she said one evening after the children had gone to bed. "They're easy to be good with." "No, they're traumatized and scared and broken in ways that might never fully heal. Being good with them takes patience. It takes love." She paused. "It takes being willing to stay." Marcus heard the question beneath her words, the fear that he would leave once the danger had passed, that he would return to whatever life he had before and forget about the family he had saved. "Elena, you don't have to say anything. I know this wasn't what you planned. You came to that cabin to be alone, to heal. We interrupted that. You saved me." She blinked. "What? I came to that cabin to disappear, to let the silence swallow what was left of me. I thought if I could just get quiet enough, the guilt would stop. The memories would fade. I could finally rest." He took her hands in his. "But you were there. You and the children and that letter on the table. You gave me something to fight for, something outside my own head." His voice thickened. "I haven't felt this alive since before Syria. Maybe longer." Elena's tears fell freely now. "Marcus, I'm not going anywhere. Not unless you want me to. I don't know how to be a father. I don't know how to be a husband, but I know how to protect. I know how to stay. And I know that whatever this is between us, it's the first thing that's made sense in a very long time." She kissed him then, not soft or brief, deep and desperate years of loneliness and grief pouring out of her. "Stay," she whispered against his lips. "Please stay." Always. The trial began 3 weeks later. Marcus testified on the 2nd day, wheeled into the courtroom in a suit that hid the bandages still wrapped around his torso. The gallery was packed with reporters, families of trafficking victims, and curious spectators who wanted to see the SEAL who had taken on a senator. Crawford sat at the defense table, his face composed, his eyes dead. The man who had ordered the deaths of dozens of people showed no emotion as Marcus was sworn in. The prosecutor was a woman named Patricia Hayes, sharp and relentless. "Mr. Cole, please describe how you came to be involved in this case." Marcus spoke clearly, his voice carrying through the silent courtroom. He told them about his grandfather's cabin, about finding Elena and the children, about the letter on the table that revealed a conspiracy reaching the highest levels of government. He told them about the chase across Montana, about the men who tried to kill them, about Mercer's ambush in the FBI parking garage, and then he told them about Syria. My team was deployed on a classified mission in March of this year. Our target was a terrorist leader responsible for multiple bombings. Intelligence indicated he would be meeting with arms dealers at a specific location near the Turkish border. His voice remained steady, but his hands trembled slightly. The intelligence was wrong. Or rather, it was deliberately falsified. We walked into an ambush. 6 men, my brothers. They died because someone sold our position to the enemy. He looked directly at Crawford. That someone was you, Senator. You gave our coordinates to a weapons dealer who was competing with your trafficking partners. You traded American lives for money. The courtroom erupted. Reporters shouted questions. The judge banged his gavel. Crawford's lawyers objected. Marcus sat through all of it, his eyes never leaving Crawford's face. For the first time, he saw something crack in the senator's composure. Fear. The recognition that his empire was crumbling, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. "No further questions," Hayes said, satisfaction evident in her voice. The defense attorney stood a silver-haired man with the confidence of someone who had never lost a case. "Mr. Cole, you were diagnosed with PTSD and traumatic brain injury after returning from Syria. Is that correct?" "Yes." "And these conditions can cause paranoia, delusions, a tendency to see conspiracies where none exist. They can, in some people. In you, Mr. Cole, in your medical records there are notes about nightmares, flashbacks, difficulty distinguishing past from present." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "I know the difference between a flashback and reality." "Do you?" "Because what I see is a traumatized soldier who lost his team and is looking for someone to blame, someone to punish for his pain. What I see is a senator who killed my brothers and dozens of innocent people. What I see is a man who trafficked women and children for profit. What I see is exactly what Daniel Vasquez saw before you had him murdered." The defense attorney opened his mouth to object, but Marcus kept talking. "You can attack my mental health all you want. You can call me paranoid, delusional, whatever makes you feel better. But the evidence doesn't lie. The money trail doesn't lie. The bodies of young women found in shallow graves along your trafficking routes don't lie." He leaned forward, ignoring the pain in his side. "Senator Crawford is guilty, and all the lawyers in the world can't change that." The courtroom fell silent. The judge cleared his throat. "I think we'll take a recess." Marcus was wheeled out of the courtroom to applause from the gallery. The verdict came 2 weeks later. Guilty on all counts: trafficking, conspiracy, murder, treason. Senator William Crawford would spend the rest of his life in federal prison. Mercer received 30 years in exchange for his testimony, a deal that left a bitter taste in Marcus's mouth, but brought down dozens of other conspirators across 5 states. Torres called with the news while Marcus was helping Sophia with her homework. "It's over," she said. "We got them all." Marcus looked at the little girl beside him, her tongue poking out as she struggled with long division. "No," he said quietly. "It's just beginning." That night, after the children were asleep, Marcus and Elena sat together on the porch of the safe house. The sky was clear stars scattered across the darkness like promises. "What happens now?" Elena asked. "Now we build something, a life, a home." He paused. "If that's what you want. What about the Navy, your career?" "I resigned last week. Official discharge comes through next month." Elena turned to face him. "You didn't tell me." "I wanted to be sure first. I spent 12 years following orders going where they sent me fighting wars that never seemed to end." He took her hand. "I'm done following. I want to choose. I want to build something that's mine." "Ours," Elena corrected softly. "Ours." They sat in silence, letting the word settle between them. "Sophia asked me something today," Elena said. "What?" "She asked if you were going to be her new daddy." Marcus's heart clenched. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that was up to you." Elena's eyes searched his face. "So what do you say, Marcus Cole, ready to be a father to 3 kids who've been through hell?" He thought of Matteo's silent trust, of Sophia's drawings, of Lucia's fragile breathing growing stronger each day. He thought of his team, the brothers he had lost, the promise he had made over their graves to do something that mattered. "Yes," he said, "I'm ready." Elena smiled, and for the first time since Daniel's death, it reached her eyes. "Then let's go home." "We don't have a home." "We'll build one." Marcus pulled her close, feeling her heart beat against his. "Together," he said. "Together." Above them, stars wheeled through the infinite darkness. Somewhere, Marcus believed 6 men were watching and smiling. Spring came to Montana like a promise finally kept. Marcus stood on the porch of the cabin he had rebuilt from the ashes of his mother's memory, watching Elena teach Sophia how to plant tomatoes in the garden they had cleared together. Lucia sat in a playpen nearby, chewing on a teething ring, her breathing strong and steady. Shadow lay in the grass, one eye open, watching Matteo throw a ball that the dog pretended to chase. 3 months had passed since the trial. 3 months since Crawford's conviction. 3 months since Marcus Cole had stopped running and started building. The cabin was different now. Larger, stronger. Built to hold a family instead of hide a ghost. Marcus had done most of the work himself, driving nails into wood until his hands bled, laying foundations until his back screamed for rest. The physical labor had healed something inside him that medicine never touched. Elena appeared at his side, dirt on her hands, sunlight in her hair. "You're staring again." "Can you blame me?" She smiled, the expression coming easier now than it had in those first terrible weeks. "Sophia wants to know if you'll help her with the fence tomorrow. She has very specific ideas about where the gate should go." "Does she?" "She drew blueprints. Actual blueprints. I have no idea where she learned that." Marcus thought of his grandfather, who had drawn blueprints for every project on this land, some lessons passed down without being taught. "Tell her I'm available for consultation." Elena laughed, and the sound filled the space between them with something warm and alive. "I love you," Marcus said. The words still felt new in his mouth, still carried the weight of a man learning to speak after years of silence. But they came easier now. Practice was changing him the same way it changed everything. "I love you too." Elena leaned against him, her body fitting against his like they had been designed for each other. "Noah called this morning." "How is he?" "Good. He finished the police academy last week. Top of his class." Marcus felt a swell of pride for the young man who had driven through a blizzard to find his brother's family. Noah had channeled his grief into purpose, following Daniel's footsteps into law enforcement, determined to continue the work his brother had started. "He's coming for dinner next week," Elena continued. "He wants to see the kids." "They'll be happy. Sophia's been asking about him." "Sophia asks about everyone. That girl collects people like other kids collect toys." Marcus smiled. It was true. Sophia had a gift for connection, for seeing the best in people and drawing it out. The trauma she had survived had not dimmed that light. If anything, it had made her more determined to find goodness wherever she could. The afternoon passed in the rhythm of domestic work. Marcus fixed a leak in the kitchen faucet. Elena prepared dinner. Sophia supervised both of them with the authority of a 7-year-old who believed she was in charge. Matteo stayed close to Shadow, as he always did, but Marcus noticed something different in the boy's posture. Less tension. Less vigilance. The constant readiness for danger that had defined him since that terrible night was slowly fading. He still did not speak. The therapist said it might take years, might never fully resolve. But he communicated in other ways now. A hand on Marcus's arm when he wanted attention. A smile when Shadow did something funny. Small gestures that said what words could not. Dinner was loud and chaotic the way family dinners should be. Sophia dominated the conversation, describing her plans for the garden in exhaustive detail. Elena translated Lucia's babbling into imaginary responses. Marcus listened and laughed and felt something settle in his chest that he barely recognized. Peace. He had forgotten what it felt like, had convinced himself it was not meant for people like him, people who had seen too much and done too much and lost too much. But here it was sitting at his table, wearing the faces of a woman and 3 children who had wandered into his life and refused to leave. After dinner, while Elena put Lucia to bed, Marcus sat on the porch with Sophia and Matteo. Shadow lay between them, his head resting on Matteo's lap. "Can I ask you something?" Sophia said. "Always. Do you still have nightmares?" The question caught Marcus off guard. He looked at the girl at her serious eyes that saw too much for her age. "Sometimes. Less than before." "Me too." She picked at a loose thread on her sweater. "I dream about the bad men. About Daddy. About running through the snow." "I'm sorry, sweetheart." "It's okay. Mama says dreams are how our brains work through hard things. She says they'll get better eventually." "Your mama is smart." "I know." Sophia paused. "When I have nightmares, I think about you. About how you saved us. It helps." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I'm glad. Matteo does it too. He told me." The words hung in the air. Marcus turned to look at the boy who was watching him with dark, unreadable eyes. "Matteo told you." Sophia nodded matter-of-factly. "He talks to me sometimes. When no one else is around, he doesn't like other people to hear yet." Marcus absorbed this revelation. The boy who had not spoken a word in 5 months was talking to his sister in secret. Healing in his own way on his own timeline. What does he say? Sophia glanced at her brother, some silent communication passing between them. Matteo nodded almost imperceptibly. "He says you make him feel safe, like Daddy used to." Sophia's voice softened. "He says he wants you to stay forever." Marcus had to look away, blinking hard against the burning in his eyes. "Tell him I'm not going anywhere. Tell him this is my home now. He's my family." Sophia relayed the message in a whisper. Matteo listened, his face unreadable, then did something he had never done before. He climbed into Marcus's lap. The boy was heavier than Marcus expected, all sharp elbows and bony knees, but he fit perfectly against Marcus's chest. His small arms wrapped around Marcus's neck, holding tight, holding on. Marcus held him back, feeling the rapid beat of a child's heart against his own, feeling the trust that had taken months to build finally crystallize into something unbreakable. "I've got you," Marcus whispered. "I've always got you." And they stayed like that until the stars came out. The letter arrived 3 weeks later. Marcus found it in the mailbox, a heavy envelope with an official return address. Department of Defense. His heart rate spiked as he tore it open, old instincts reading threat in anything unexpected. But it was not a threat. It was an invitation. The Secretary of Defense requested the presence of Marcus Cole at a ceremony honoring the fallen members of SEAL Team 7, the men who died in Syria, his brothers. The ceremony would take place in Washington, D.C., at Arlington National Cemetery. Families of the fallen had been notified. A memorial would be dedicated. Names would be read. Marcus read the letter 3 times, his hands shaking. Elena found him sitting on the porch, the paper clutched in his fists. "What is it?" He handed her the letter without speaking. She read it slowly, her expression shifting from confusion to understanding to something that looked like hope. "They're honoring them." "Yes. Are you going to go?" Marcus stared at the mountains in the distance, at the land his grandfather had loved, at the home he had built from the wreckage of his past. "I don't know if I can." Elena sat beside him, close enough to touch, but not touching, giving him space to feel what he needed to feel. "Tell me why." "Because I survived. Because I walked out when they didn't. Because every day I wake up in this beautiful place with this beautiful family, and they're in the ground. They don't get to see their kids grow up. They don't get second chances." His voice cracked. "How do I stand at their graves and explain why I'm still here?" Elena was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was gentle but firm. "You don't explain. You honor. You carry their memory into the life you're building. You prove that their sacrifice meant something by living well, by loving fully, by being the man they would be proud to call brother. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's the hardest thing in the world. But you've already done harder things, Marcus. You've survived when you wanted to die. You've protected when you wanted to run. You've loved when you were afraid to feel anything at all." She took his hand. "Go to Washington. Say goodbye to your brothers. And then come home to us. We'll be waiting." Marcus looked at her, at this woman who had lost her own husband to violence and still found the strength to love again. "Come with me." "What? All of you? Elena? The kids? Shadow? Come to Washington. I want you there. I need you there." Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything." She pulled him close, and he buried his face in her hair, breathing in the scent of home. Arlington National Cemetery was quiet in the early morning. Marcus walked between the rows of white headstones, Elena at his side, the children following behind. Shadow moved silently beside Matteo, a shadow protecting a shadow. He found them in section 60. 6 graves side by side, the names carved into stone that would outlast generations. Tyler Brooks, Jason Chen, Michael Santos, David Wright, Robert Garcia, James Patterson, his brothers. Marcus knelt before the first headstone, his fingers tracing the letters of Tyler's name. Tyler had been the team leader. 29 years old, married with twin daughters who would never know their father. "I'm sorry," Marcus whispered. "I'm sorry I couldn't save you." The wind stirred, rustling through the grass, carrying the words away. He moved to each grave in turn, speaking names, sharing memories, making promises he intended to keep. He told them about Elena, about the children, about the cabin in Montana, and the life he was building from the ashes of the one he had lost. He told them about Daniel Vasquez, the sheriff, who had died exposing the same corruption that had killed them, about how their deaths had been connected, part of the same web of evil that had finally been torn apart. "Crawford is in prison," Marcus said. "He'll die there. He'll never hurt anyone again. That's because of you. Because you gave me a reason to keep fighting when I wanted to give up. Sophia appeared beside him, her small hand slipping into his. These are your friends? Yes, my best friends. They're heroes. The best kind. The kind who don't care about medals or glory. The kind who just do what's right because it's right. Sophia studied the headstones with solemn eyes. Can I give them something? What do you have? She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. A drawing. Marcus recognized himself in the picture standing with shadow, protecting 3 small figures and 1 larger one. Behind them, 6 angels watched from the sky. I made it for them, Sophia said. So they know you're not alone anymore. Marcus could not speak. He took the drawing and placed it carefully at the base of Tyler's headstone, weighting it with a small stone so the wind would not carry it away. Thank you, sweetheart. They would have loved you. I know. Sophia squeezed his hand. I love them too, because they're part of you, and I love all of you. The ceremony began an hour later. Military officials in dress uniforms. Families of the fallen gathered in grief and pride. Reporters kept at a respectful distance. The Secretary of Defense himself presiding over the dedication of a memorial that would stand for generations. Marcus sat with Elena and the children in the front row, his body straight, his eyes dry, his heart breaking and healing in equal measure. When his name was called, he walked to the podium on legs that felt like stone. 1,000 faces looked up at him, waiting for words that he had not prepared, trusting him to speak for men who could no longer speak for themselves. He gripped the podium and began. I was supposed to die in Syria. The same ambush that killed my brothers should have killed me. For a long time I wished it had. I carried their names like stones in my pocket, weighing me down, dragging me under. I thought survival was a punishment, a curse, a debt I could never repay. His voice steadied as he continued. But I was wrong. Survival is not a punishment. It's a responsibility. A charge to live well, to love deeply, to protect fiercely, to honor the memory of those who gave everything by giving everything ourselves. He looked at Elena, at Sophia, at Matteo, holding Shadow's leash. These men were my brothers. They taught me what courage means. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. They taught me that strength is not about how much you can destroy, but how much you can protect. They taught me that family is not always blood. Sometimes it's the people who stand beside you when the bullets start flying. His eyes moved to the graves behind him. Tyler Brooks left behind twin daughters who will never know his laugh. Jason Chen's mother lights a candle for him every Sunday. Michael Santos was saving for a house he'll never buy. David Wright proposed to his girlfriend 3 days before deployment. Robert Garcia was the best marksman I ever knew and the worst poker player. James Patterson sang in the shower loud enough to wake the dead, and I would give anything to hear that terrible voice one more time. Tears were falling now, but he did not wipe them away. They were not statistics. They were not casualties. They were men. Sons, husbands, fathers, friends, and they deserved to come home. He paused, gathering himself for what came next. Their deaths were not an accident. They were murdered by men who valued money over lives, power over duty, greed over honor. Those men are in prison now. Justice has been served. But justice does not bring back the dead. It does not fill empty chairs at Christmas. It does not answer the questions of children who will grow up without fathers. His voice rose, filling the silent cemetery. What we can do, what we must do, is remember. Remember their names. Remember their sacrifice. Remember that freedom is not free, and those who pay the price deserve more than monuments. They deserve lives lived in their honor. They deserve a world where their deaths meant something. He looked directly at the families gathered before him. I cannot bring your sons back, your husbands, your brothers, but I can promise you this: I will spend every day of the life they gave me trying to be worthy of their sacrifice. I will love fiercely. I will protect without hesitation. I will teach my children that courage matters, that truth matters, that standing up for what is right matters even when it costs everything. He stepped back from the podium. Rest easy, brothers. I've got the watch from here. The applause was thunderous, but Marcus barely heard it. He walked back to his family, to Elena, who was crying openly, to Sophia, who threw herself into his arms, to Matteo, who reached out and touched his face with small, gentle fingers. And then Matteo spoke. Daddy. One word, barely a whisper, but it shattered the silence that had held him prisoner for 6 months. Marcus froze. Elena gasped. Sophia's eyes went wide. What did you say? Matteo's voice was hoarse, unpracticed, but certain. You're my daddy now. The angels said so. Marcus dropped to his knees, pulling the boy into an embrace that contained everything he had no words for. Love, gratitude, grief, hope, all of it pouring out of him in a flood that he could not have stopped if he tried. Yes, he managed. I'm your daddy, forever. I promise. Matteo held on tight, his small body shaking with the release of everything he had been holding inside. Don't leave us. Never, not ever. Elena joined them on the ground, wrapping her arms around both of them. Sophia piled on top. Even Shadow pushed his way into the huddle, his wet nose pressing against every face he could reach. They knelt there, in the shadow of heroes, a family forged in fire, finally whole. 6 months later, Marcus stood in a small church outside of Helena, Montana, watching Elena walk toward him in a white dress that made her look like an angel. Sophia scattered flowers with aggressive enthusiasm. Matteo carried the rings on a pillow, his steps careful, his face serious with responsibility. Lucia was held by Noah, who had driven 12 hours to be there. Shadow sat beside Marcus at the altar, wearing a bow tie that Sophia had insisted upon. The ceremony was simple. The vows were not. I was broken when you found me, Marcus said, holding Elena's hands in his. I thought my life was over, that I had nothing left to give, but you showed me that broken things can be rebuilt, that loss can become love, that the worst chapter of your story does not have to be the last. Elena squeezed his hands, tears streaming down her face. I promise to protect you and our children with everything I have. I promise to stand beside you in storms and in sunshine. I promise to honor Daniel's memory by loving you the way he would want you to be loved. Completely. Faithfully. Forever. When Elena spoke, her voice was steady, despite her tears. You came into our lives as a stranger and became our salvation. You fought for us when you had every reason to walk away. You loved us when we were hardest to love. You taught my children that safety exists, that goodness exists, that fathers do not have to be blood to be real. She smiled through her tears. I promise to be your home when the world feels too heavy. I promise to remind you that survival is not a curse, but a gift. I promise to love you the way you deserve to be loved, loudly, stubbornly, without reservation. The minister pronounced them husband and wife, and Marcus kissed her, while Sophia cheered and Matteo clapped and Lucia babbled something that might have been approval. That night, after the children were asleep and the guests had gone, Marcus and Elena sat on the porch of their cabin, watching stars wheel across the Montana sky. Daniel would have liked you, Elena said softly. I would have liked him. He used to say that love was the only thing worth fighting for. I didn't understand what he meant until I met you. Marcus pulled her close, feeling her heartbeat against his own. I used to think my story ended in Syria, that everything after was just borrowed time. He kissed her forehead. I was wrong. My story was just beginning. I just needed to find the right people to share it with. Elena smiled against his chest. And now I have everything. A wife, children, a home, a purpose. He paused. And a letter on the table that changed everything. The letter was framed now, hanging in the living room beside photos of Daniel and photos of Marcus's team. A reminder of sacrifice. A testament to truth. A bridge between two families that had become one. Elena looked up at him, her eyes holding all the love and pain and hope that had brought them to this moment. No more running, no more running, no more hiding, never again. Just us, just this. Marcus looked at the cabin he had rebuilt at the garden where his children played at the woman in his arms who had given him a reason to live. Just us. Just this. Forever. Above them, the stars burned bright against the darkness. Somewhere, Marcus believed Daniel Vasquez was smiling, and 6 Navy SEALs were standing watch, their sacrifice honored by the family they had made possible. Some letters are written to destroy, but Daniel's letter was written to save. It saved Elena. It saved the children. It saved Marcus Cole from a silence that would have swallowed him whole. And in a cabin on a Montana mountain, surrounded by the people he loved, a broken soldier finally found what he had been searching for all along. Not silence. Not solitude. Not escape. Home. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell us where you're watching from. And if you believe in second chances, in found family, in the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds, join us in a prayer that God may bless and protect you, your family, and all who are searching for their way home. Subscribe for more stories of courage, faith, and redemption. God bless you. And remember, the letter on your table might just change everything.